If you write a referral and the patient has to leave your practice, the chances are they're not going to come back. Okay. And if they do come back, it may be a week or 2 weeks before you get the films and the report back. That's a delay in management and a delay in that customer touch point, which is really important to ensure that they actually keep coming back.
Hello and welcome to the Remarkable CEO Podcast, a show dedicated to chiropractors who want to transform their job into a business so that they can have a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. With your hosts, Dr. Pete Camiolo and Dr. Stephen Franson.
Welcome back to the Remarkable Practice Success Partner Podcast. And today I have someone very special with us. We have John from Next Healthcare, and they are the leading radiology group in Australia and with chiropractors. So John, it is so great to meet you. Would you like to give a bit of an introduction about yourself?
Thank you, Dr. Oz. Pleasure. Thank you for the introduction. My name is John Conidi. I'm an accountant by trade, but I've been in radiology for 25 years. Started a very successful business in Melbourne called Capital Radiology that went Australia-wide and was publicly listed and now been taken over by another group called IDX. Since then, since my departure many years ago, I decided to be a bit more specific in radiology, and we developed Next Healthcare was the next iteration. And Next Healthcare predominantly does radiology reporting services with chiropractors. And we partner with chiropractors to ensure that we get very good outcomes for them, but also their patients.
Love it. So you mentioned like helping chiropractors, partnering up with chiropractors. So let's say that I put an X-ray machine into my business. What specific problems can you help solve for us?
So I suppose, my roadmap or the way I think is, what are the problems that are going to be in the future as an operator, not only in my business, but also in my clients' businesses. And if you're looking at providing excellent medical outcomes, and whether you're a general practitioner, whether you're a chiropractor or a dental practitioner, if you look at where people's lives are going, it's very fast paced. It's very immediate. And you can see that through social media. Everyone wants something now. You look at dental in particular, the concept of dental aesthetics and not necessarily braces, but implants. You can get those done immediately these days, right? So my point being in radiology, and especially chiropractic, if you want to get the right outcome or immediate outcome for a patient and get the right management, as we know, most chiropractors will take an X-ray first time up for a new patient. If you write a referral and the patient has to leave your practice, the chances are they're not going to come back. Okay. And if they do come back, it may be a week or 2 weeks before you get the films and the report back. So that's a delay in management and a delay in that customer touch point, which is really important to ensure that they actually keep coming back, right? So a one-off visit, it's not really enough. You really want to get a patient in there for at least, I just saw a chiropractor myself, someone who does the CBP, okay? It does a 12-week consultation. I know how important it is to go there consistently over a period of time. 1 or 2 visits isn't enough. Radiology is one of those mechanisms, one of those tools which enables you to articulate the patient's problems immediately and be on the process or a pathway of a management plan. Right. Where we come into it is, unfortunately, radiology has an unintended consequence, right? So you can't just say as a chiropractor, I'm going to take a full spine X-ray, but all I want to see is basically the vertebrae. Exclude the lungs, exclude all the soft tissues. It doesn't work that way, mate. And that's the problem that exists, is that when you take that image, you own it medico-legally. And we get so many situations where there's pathology, okay, that a chiropractor wouldn't necessarily see. And that's the unintended consequence of getting a chiropractic X-ray. When we come in is that we actually alleviate that problem. Once you send us the film, the risk goes from you to our radiologist in effect. So that's the benefit.
You spoke 3 great things, right? I just want to recap a couple for those listening. The first of all is literally they're having to send your new patient away to come back, and who knows if they're going to get started. And there's something called the 72-hour rule or the 3-day rule, right? You want someone to come back within 3 days because that's going to increase your conversions improve the importance and actually get them started. So that's massive. Having that in-house, having that reporting come back immediately.
Yep.
Love it. You know what? Just a side note, Amazon even has Amazon today now, not Amazon tomorrow. So you
Well,
talk
I know.
about
I live a little bit in the US, and I can get my deliveries in 2 hours.
there you go. All right.
There you go.
The second point that I really loved as well is the safety, right? Just having that assurance in the back of mind where you don't have to go through every region, lung, organ you have. Focus on everything where you can just focus on what you love.
Correct.
Focus on the spine, focus on that nervous system, right? Beautiful. And so that's how we get on board. What return of investment can, chiropractors expect working with you?
Yeah. So the way we work is we're a partnership model. So we partner with our chiropractors, and we share the returns or the profit. So what we do is we have the capability of billing Medicare for this service because as a radiologist, to bill Medicare, you need three components. You need a referring practitioner, which is the chiropractor. You need a patient with a Medicare number. And thirdly, you need a radiologist that is able to bill Medicare. So that enables us to, so basically all our reports are Medicare compliant. The fees that we generate, we enter in what we call a service level agreement with our partners, where we enter into a profit share in effect. The way we do it has been Medicare has approved our model. Okay. So I have no issue, or people can say, well, you can't give money back. Well, you can if you structure it correctly. If you lead the Medicare Act, it actually says a profit distribution is what they call a permitted benefit. Okay. Now, it depends how you structure it. We've spent a lot of money on legal fees to get this right. Medicare has checked over our agreement and given us the all tick. So we've got a letter from Medicare saying, you know what, you guys are good to go. There's nothing that obviously the government can change regulations and legislation anytime they want, but as of today, it's fine. We normally remit back to our partners within 5 business days at the end of the month. So let's take May, for example. May will end on Friday. By next Friday, next week, our partners will get their profit share. Okay. But in terms of, so one of the things that the partners are still able to do, so Medicare pays for two things. It pays for the acquisition of the scan, and it also pays for the radiologist report. A chiropractor can still charge a patient for an interpretation fee. Okay. So the example I use is very simple. If you were to go to your general practitioner and he refers you for an ultrasound of your knee, for argument's sake, he charges you for that initial consultation. When you go back to get the report, he charges you again. Okay. So there's nothing wrong with that. You just can't charge the patient for the acquisition. Okay. So you'll be very, very specific. There's nothing stopping you from charging the patient for your time and effort in communicating with them the results of that X-ray. Okay. So your own interpretation, but also including the interpretation of the radiologist. So there's a financial benefit there. If you look at a machine cost, it's not crazy expensive. You're probably looking at all in, once you do works and all the rest of it, it's probably about anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000. That's the cost of the machine. And it all comes down to volume. How many do you do? We've had some of our clients that have paid back the machine within 4 months, some 6 months, some 8 months, right? It's really a function of volume. If you're doing 10 a week, which is 2 a day, you should seriously consider getting your own X-ray machine. Because not only does that, what that does is it actually heightens your probability of getting more new work because of it. Okay. Do not discount the marketing angle of having an in-house X-ray machine.
Love it.
Very, very important. It's not 5 years payback. Okay. It's not that at all. It's actually relatively quick.
So I'm going to add a couple points just to further reinforce everything you're saying. Okay. So when we're talking ROI for everyone listening, first of all, you have images in-house. So that already builds the value of the care that you're providing. So people are going to stay under care longer. So your lifetime value of your people is going to be longer and higher. Apologies. The second is, like you said, it's a marketing angle. People want simplicity. People want easy. When you have an X-ray in-house, people are going to come to you because it's convenient. Last thing people want to do is go from one place to the next place to the next place and run around. You know? The third thing is you talked about paying it off in like 4 months, 6 months, 12 months. I want people to understand that's only 1 year. after that 1 year, profit.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can literally reinvest that back into your business to help yourself grow and serve more people as well.
Yeah.
So I love that, John. Thank you.
So one of the things as well as chiropractors probably don't know or do know is that you can also refer other parts of the body apart from your spine and your shoulder. You can do shoulders, you can do knees, you can do feet as well. Okay. So there's no reason why you can't attach a right knee or a left knee or bilateral knees with that full spine X-ray. If at the end of the day, it's everything has to be based on a very simple concept: is that it has to be justifiable. Okay, it has to be medically justified. You just don't do it willy nilly because you're exposing radiation to someone, right? And governments have high penalties in relation to doing that without the clinical justification for it. One of the other benefits that we provide as well that I probably don't talk about enough is that we also help you get your patient immediate access to MRI at bulk billing. Okay. So unfortunately, the Medicare system is based on hierarchy. The government rates you based on your qualification. Okay. At the top of the tree is specialists, then general practitioners, and then you'll see your, dentist, allied healthcare. And depending where you sit on that ladder, it's government gives you referral rates. So because radiologists are specialists, they have the ability to write MRI referrals. So through our Best Scan product or Best Scan service, because in some of the reports, so what will happen is when you get a report back from our radiologist, there'll be some recommendations sometimes. And sometimes the recommendation is a CT scan. Sometimes it's maybe a joint injection or an MRI. At the moment, for you to give the patient the pathway to that test, you would have to go through a general practitioner. Okay. So me being the example, I am 53 years old. Unfortunately, once I turn 50, a GP can't refer me for an MRI anymore and get bulk billed. I have to be referred to a specialist. So think about it. If I come to you, Dr. Oz, and you say, John, there's something not right with your knee, you need an MRI. You can either go to the clinic and pay $300 or $400 out of pocket, or then you send me to a GP. The GP says, well, John, sorry, you're 53, mate. You don't meet the criteria. He's got to send me then to a specialist, which is another $400 maybe, and wait 4 weeks for an appointment, who then sends me to the radiology. And then I have to go back to the specialist for the report, another $400. So in our case, you have the capability of writing an MRI referral. You know whether that patient is MRI or not. If your notes are clinically justifiable, they have the right reason. You can't just say MRI of the knee. There's got to be a reason, right? It could be ACL or whatever, torn ligament. The radiologist or one of our specialists will look at it, orthopedic surgeon, and they will say, yeah, I agree with you. They put their name on the referral. So that person now can take that referral to a radiology clinic and get that bulk billed. So again, we're shortening this patient care. It's instead of taking 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, you can get an outcome within a week.
That's amazing. That's going to be the future of success for the docs as well.
Correct. It builds brand value to the way that you practice, which means the referrer will stay. Well, the patient will stay with you longer, and hopefully they'll promote your business to their colleagues and friends and whoever it may be.
Thank you. So, what would be the best way to get in touch with you now?
Well, simply just visit the website. It's called nexthc.com.au. On there's a contact details for Donna Hobbs. Donna's details are there. So her email address is donna@nexthc.com.au. Her phone number's on there as well. Speak to Donna. Donna I've got to be polite, but I'll use the word veteran. She's been in radiology and the chiropractic space for a long time. She attends most of the remarkable conferences. She's well liked and well loved, and she knows the space. She knows it inside out. She knows the clinical side of it. So her background by trade is a radiographer. So she's there to onboard clients, not only from a corporate perspective, but also from a clinical perspective. Right? We try and educate our partners as much as possible on how to take X-rays consistently. The better the quality of the X-ray, the easier the job is for the radiologist, which is very, very important. One of the things I do want to talk about before we finish up, but the website gives you all that information. So nexthc.com.au, and just contact Donna. One of the things is I want to give you an insight into the future, and one of the things that we're doing that will hopefully come to market sooner or later. And it really relates to AI. Okay. So one of the things that exists now is we will get a substantial inflow of work coming in on a daily basis. And you're relying on a radio, and it's basically reported on first in, first served, unless it's marked urgent. Where our AI comes in, AI has the capability of triaging, right? So we're building an AI model that is not providing a diagnostic report, but is flagging adverse findings. Okay. So he thinks that there could be a problem here. So what that does is that will usurp that patient to on top of the list instead of it being on a date or time-based stamp, right? So it's very important. So we're trying to get optimal patient outcomes immediately. And you don't know what's urgent or what's not by just looking at a patient's name, right? But AI does have the capability now of being able to determine, it can see something that we train it. So it's trained, right? This is a complex model and we're able to do this purely because we have hundreds of thousands of chiropractic spines in our database. So we're getting to the point now where we're still testing it. Hopefully towards the end of the year, we'll use this internally to triage. It's not there to do radiology reporting. It's still done by a human. But what it's there to do is to highlight a patient that requires immediate attention, potentially requires immediate attention. Okay. That means your patient, you'll know today, instead of probably 3 or 4 days on the track, that patient needs something. And that's what it is. It's just, unfortunately, if you look at, when you do a chiropractic spine, you're in theory taking 3/4 of the anatomy, right?
Much.
3/4, right? So it's really up to the orbit sometimes, all the way down to the thighs. And you're predominantly looking at lesions and tumors and, some fractures occasionally, or one of our chiropractors, look, I don't know how one of our radiologists, I don't know how he saw it. There's a fracture in the cervical spine. The last thing you want to be doing is an adjustment when there's a fracture there, right? But it was just a routine image. It wasn't marked, flagged or anything like that, right? So, and that's what we're there for. We're there to ensure that, look, at the same time, the relationship is, to a certain extent, if we don't hear from you, we're doing a great job. If you hear from us, we're doing a great job, all right? But you'll hear from us when there's something that needs to be attended to, right? Because you guys run a busy practice and time is important. And we want you to know that you're basically outsourcing your radiology obligations. And those obligations run far and deep from a clinical perspective, right? You take the picture, you own it. You can't just turn up to court and say, well, I'm not a radiologist. You took it, court doesn't care.
That's right.
And that's the whole point of it. If you look at it, if you look at the ROI and the investment, it's actually what we call a free carry, meaning that you're getting a benefit for no financial impost in effect. Okay?
So good, John. Thank you. Thank you so much
Pleasure.
for jumping on today and sharing it. So guys, if you want to get in touch with John, he's already linked the website. I'm going to also make sure it's on the podcast, so you can click on the link as well. It'll be in the description. So make sure you check him out and work with Next Healthcare because they're game changing. John, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Graz. I'll see you soon. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Please stick around for more business insights from this week's bonus interview with our remarkable success partner dedicated to helping you more successfully help more people. Enjoy.
We're here with Dan from Twoconnect, one of our fantastic success partners in Australia. Dan, tell us a little bit about the specific problems that Twoconnect solves for chiropractic clinics that are engaging with Twoconnect and using them for their services. What problems do you guys solve as a business?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, and great to be here. Basically, the problems that we're solving is helping with certain administrative aspects of practices. So that very often can break down into the problems of specifically to do with lead conversion and patient life cycle and reactivation. So what we hear a lot as we're talking to chiros is a kind of low-level anxiety about, are we following up on leads, A, quickly enough, and B, enough times? They might take multiple calls. Do our front of house staff really have the bandwidth to be doing that? So there's a feeling that no, we're probably not. We're leaving revenue on the table there. The other piece as well is about reactivation. So, we've got this big database of people, they've come in, maybe there's people 6, 12, 18 months we haven't heard from. Do we have any real meaningful engagement with them? Probably not so much. So again, there's a problem there with not maximizing that database and not going back and getting conversions, running campaigns. And then probably a third would just be other administrative aspects. So there might be things that can sit behind the scenes that can be done from an offshore perspective, because to be clear, what we're talking about is a dedicated team member working in the Philippines for the practice. And this might be things like X-ray roll-ups, or it might be doing certain aspects of reporting, punching numbers into spreadsheets, right through to, as I say, the more sort of patient-facing roles. So,
So
yeah.
I guess kind of in a nutshell, what you're talking about is finding a labor force outside of the local area. And I've got a busy practice. I've got numerous CAs, and finding an A player in is difficult. We've had hiring processes where we get 150 to 200 applications, and maybe three of them are worth actually pulling into the clinic and having a face-to-face interview. So that can be super frustrating.
Yeah.
So you're talking about finding a specialized labor force outside of your local area, specifically the Philippines.
Yeah.
And so, from the sounds of it, you've helped people with their marketing and lead follow up and lead generation, or taking them from, a prospect into a patient, converting them to a patient.
Yeah.
You've also, the interesting, you mentioned like ruling up X-rays and those kind of little tasks.
Yeah.
You find specialized people that can do that sort of stuff, train them up for what we want to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. The way that the model works is that we have a chat with the chiro and go, like, what's the role profile? Like, what are you after? What's the need? Where's the pain? And then we go, okay, well, here's a position description. Does that meet that? Any tweaks to this? Any arrangements? And then it's like, yes, let's go forward. And if it's go forward, give us a couple of weeks. We'll come back with 3 to 4 candidates who meet that brief, who have some kind of background. So it might be, say, a medical background, or even if sometimes it can be a more salesy background, for example. And we go, right, here's these 3 to 4 candidates. Which one do you like best? And then maybe we can do some role plays or some scenario-based testing to really de-risk it and make sure we've got the right person. And then, yeah, we deploy them. So yeah, it's a pretty simple model. It basically, a lot of it rests on us. It's de-risked because you're not paying anything until that person's actually starting work. And it's also, you're not having to bring on another employer and all of the employment liability with that, because they're employed to our legal entity in the Philippines. We manage all of the HR, the payroll, the holiday management, all of that. And they align to Australian time zones, they align to your national holidays. So all of that heavy lifting is done in the background. You just get that full-time team member. You get to select the one that you want. And we're off and running.
Yeah, that actually sounds like a major problem solver for a lot of particularly busy practices, but even I guess you've probably had scenarios where people who are, solo practitioner or not too many staff have engaged with your services to really help them expand and grow. So for example, for our build docs who are just starting out and just starting to get the clinic rolling, and they need somebody specialized, but they've got a jack of all trades at the front, which is often what happens when you hire your first CA. I guess you guys can add an extra dimension into specializing particular roles reasonably quickly from what
That
it.
is the case. That is the case. Or I will say, I want to be transparent about this. I do understand that often there's a certain point or a certain scale where this starts making more sense. And often that is, maybe there is 2 to 3 plus fully loaded chiropractors where you start to go, right, we've got CAs, but those CAs are busy, and we got admin building up. Again, these are we calling people enough? That's when this model can probably really start to come into play, and the ROI starts to come into effect. Yeah, I just wanted to be clear about that, because if solo practitioners, often just that single CA might be covering things, and we do provide full-time roles. So that's where that sort of ROI stack up starts to come into play.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of that ROI, what kind of ROI can a CEO expect from investing in engaging with Twoconnect, bringing in somebody offshore, a virtual chiropractic assistant?
Yeah.
Have you got a case study or an example?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we've got multiple case studies, and I guess the underlying maths is that getting one of our virtual CAs or patient support representatives or lead conversion specialists, it's going to cost between 55 and 65% less than hiring someone onshore for the, yeah, but for that uh, requisite level of skill set. So if you start to think about that and where the ROI, say for like the back doctor or Chiro H3 or some of these businesses that we've worked with, Wellbeing Chiropractic as well, is it's when you're going, right, we've got this full-time resource who's costing half what a normal person would cost. There's no, superannuation or anything like that to worry about. And the call volumes that are being made because they're dedicated to this is usually 7-fold. So therefore, we've seen conversion rates, double and triple based on just being able to deploy that cost-effective resource appropriately to that, that conversion funnel, basically. And again, similarly, sometimes there's a split or a hybrid role where they're doing some of that lead conversion stuff, but also they're taking admin away from the CA. So that's where the ROI kicks in. And there's also, I think, critically a real patient and actual customer satisfaction piece as well. So what I mean is the front of house COs, the people physically there, are able to, the phone is not ringing as much basically, and they're not having to make as many phone calls, and maybe there's inboxes being taken care of at a certain level as well. Therefore, that's going to translate into a more present patient experience. What that also means is that output is happening from the offshore perspective.
So, in terms of, I guess, if when we're talking about the direct ROI and we talk about the, cost to acquire a customer,
Yeah.
it's, I guess, a bit of a balancing act, right? Because if we're going to invest in offshore help and we're going to invest in, digital marketing, which is, reasonably expensive for a chiropractic profession, unless you're doing it really right and you've got your ads optimized, all that kind of stuff. But it's still an expense. One thing that I don't like with my digital leads that I've paid to acquire is I don't like them sitting in our CRM waiting for someone to touch them. And we know that there's so much data on this that the faster you call that prospect once they're in your CRM, the higher the likelihood of them actually coming into your practice. And I think it was something like the research was 87% more likely if you call them within the first 5 minutes. Now, I run a busy practice. I know my CAs work hard. Often they just don't have the time resource to do that. So I guess what you're talking about is a protection of the ROI that you're already putting into marketing to, you know, funnel in those leads. And also, you mentioned the reactivation campaigns. You're right. We've got a whole bunch of a large database of people that have only stopped coming in because they just kind of lost their way. It's not because they didn't love chiropractic,
Yeah.
because, they weren't having a great experience. They just kind of got a little bit lost and they slipped through the cracks.
Yeah, or often there's something really small, and we see our clients being smart and doing reactivation campaigns that aren't, hey, you haven't been in for a while, do you want to come back in? It's more you can almost position it as like a feedback gathering kind of survey kind of piece. So you're calling saying, not sure if you recall, but 8-10 months ago you came in, and we're just doing doing a piece of work to understand what that experience was like. Was there anything? What was that experience for you? And sometimes doing that, somebody can bring up that thing, whatever that was that barrier that made them come back. And then, of course, what you can do is do work to go, oh, okay, well, if that's the case, and you can overcome that objection and get them back in as well. So it can be a multifaceted. So you're getting feedback from the market about what your patients are feeling, especially the ones who aren't coming back. You can start building that up and going, listen, what I'm hearing is, you can build lists of these are the reasons that people aren't coming back in. Some of them might be known, and you might go, sure, maybe it's money related, or but maybe there's an experience that they're having that you're not aware about. So again, it's that patient care. So yes, quicker to call. Also, the reactivations, getting information from that database and getting conversions from that. But also, you can just perhaps layer in a patient life cycle touch that you never had before, because we've got resource to do it. Wouldn't it be good if after X point or Y point, they got a call and were asked this specific question, or we're given this specific piece of information, for example. So you can really start to get smart and much more interactive with your client base.
And I think probably the beautiful thing about that, especially in an age of, bots and automated calls and all that kind of stuff, is we're actually talking about speaking to an actual person,
Yeah.
human touch, which
Yeah.
is, you know,
And listen, on that
what
point,
makes it
Andrew,
so
I would just want to bring something up, which I think is fair. Sometimes people say, okay, offshore resource, I get it, it's cheaper, sure. But, what is that accent like? What's the English like? And I'd say two things to that. One, this wouldn't be up and running successfully in this space if we weren't talking about people who were great, bubbly, empathetic communicators. Absolutely the expectation is that they have a very high level. The second piece is that you don't have to take our word for it. The way that the model works is you see the candidates, you make the choice. And if you simply said, well, these candidates aren't, up to scratch from any perspective, but if it was communication perspective, then it's on us to find you some better candidates. I just wanted to take that off the table because I know that sometimes people go offshore. I've got concerns about, how that's going to come across with our brand. But that is something that we take care of, and you are always in control of that.
And you know what? I think it's a bigger problem in people's mind than it actually is in reality. I actually have somebody from the Philippines who's local who works on my front desk.
Yeah.
And nobody bats an eyelid when she rings them and makes a genuine call from the front desk. So they go, "Oh yeah, she works there."
Exactly right. Yeah.
The more multicultural your workforce is, the less people are stressed about it. Do you know what I mean?
That's what I believe for sure.
I think we've actually kind of touched on this question, but the next thing I wanted to ask you was when we consider what's important next in kind of looking at the future trajectory of the chiropractic profession, the way the world is heading, how are you helping chiropractors to prepare to succeed in the future?
Yeah. Look, I think what it is we sit in that critical piece, which is where the remarkable practice sits, which is with chiropractors who are going, how am I looking to build that business machine? Really, that funnel, all of the metrics that sit behind it, CAC to LTV, all of these, critical metrics. As you start moving in that direction, naturally you're measuring those things so that you can improve those phases. You can improve each stage, whether it be conversion, whether it be life cycle, whether it be whatever the case may be. And what offshoring allows is to say, hang on a second, traditionally this phase of what we do, this part of our offering just incurs this amount of cost and this amount of effort in terms of recruiting new people, recruiting CAs to come in. Actually, it turns out that the CAs that we hire, a lot of them, they're good with our people, but they don't really like, getting on the phones. That's a bit of a sort of a have to do and that kind of thing. So it completely changes that equation. And we can come and say, right, let's look at all that overall business. Let's look at that pain and let's look at that cost. And let's fundamentally change that. We can cut that in half or even better. And we can move to a more metrics-based approach where we are using these metrics and getting more metrics input from these people as well, because they have the time to be actually putting in things into spreadsheets or into CRMs and things like that, measuring that, building reports off the back of that. So I'd say the thing is what we're doing is we're helping chiropractors scale with just dramatically reducing that operating costs from a people perspective. But that kind of bandwidth and those types of roles we're also seeing is helping feed into improved metrics as well. Yeah, those are probably the key points that I'd make. Perhaps a final thing as well is that if there is a point where practices maybe are thinking of growing and there's maybe multiple practices or multiple locations as well, this solution can work really well for that. So we've got one person who can now be working across two locations, three locations, or however many locations that you need. So it's basically a way of helping accelerate growth by driving efficiency, reducing cost, and improving the way that you're working with metrics.
You mentioned that CAC to LTV ratio, right? And we're also talking about protecting that investment that you put into marketing. And if you can optimize your marketing funnel for the same amount of ad spend, then your CAC goes down.
Yeah.
Even and if we're doing it efficiently, even if we add that expense of, offshore, the CAC still goes down because it's significantly more optimized and perhaps converting prospects from, I don't know, throw some numbers out, 20, if we can get it to 30 or 40%, the
Yeah.
immediate ROI.
Yeah.
On that.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And I'm sure you've heard this, but we do again hear that anxiety of like, well, I would like to put some more money in the top of the funnel and spend more money on marketing, but I'm not really sure we're going to catch it. Like we're just
Yeah.
going to be money in, and but that's more calls, and we're already struggling to make those returns. So it does free up and make that growth feel a little bit more possible, a little bit more sustainable. But it's not just the CAC, it's the LTV as well, because if you're able to communicate more regularly at more critical touch points with a patient, and again get back into those traditional someone who, right, the LTV has come to an end, not if we're doing reactivations in smart ways as well. So it's both ends of that
Both ends of the scale. That's the
Yeah.
dream.
Yeah.
And so I guess what we're really talking about is Twoconnect can come along and they can plug that leaky bucket, plug the hole in that leaky bucket, whether that leaky bucket represents, the marketing funnel and just leads, prospects just dropping out of that funnel because they're not getting called fast enough, or the genuine patient base who people are leaking out of that bucket just because they get lost and there's no reactivation campaign.
Yeah.
So
That's it.
that sounds like a wonderful solution. Now,
Yeah.
I've actually got one other question that I'm just going to throw in there. There's a lot of different offshoring kind of agencies. Sometimes people go searching for themselves. You touched on this briefly, but what sets Twoconnect apart from those other agencies and the option of looking for offshore labor?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I think the DNA of Twoconnect is interesting because it's a family-run business, and the story actually is that the Kukla family who set up the business lived in the Philippines for a long period of time, and the founder and MD actually basically grew up there. So there's a real understanding and connection with the country, with the people, with the culture, and also a deep understanding of the workforce and what it takes to do business over there. So there's kind of a dual mission for Twoconnect, which is, yes, to serve our clients with excellence, but it's also to provide great working opportunities for hardworking Filipinos and their families as well. So, for example, we have private health insurances built into the offering. So we've got a really good reputation over there of looking after our people incredibly well. The other piece is that part of our basis and our partnerships over in the Philippines was that it started from a medical background. So we've always understood how to operate in that space, the importance of looking after patients and having how to source those people and look after them really well. So those are probably the key points. And quite frankly, now I think that Twoconnect has more chiropractic clients than frankly anyone else. So we've carved out a niche, and we've got to work with the remarkable practice and really spend some time understanding how chiropractors work and what the drivers and needs are.
Yeah, and look, we're a unique profession and our needs and focuses are completely different. And having somebody who understands, you're already talking about cost to acquire a customer versus lifetime value ratios, all that kind of stuff. So it's good to see that we have these success partners that can genuinely fix a problem for our remarkable client practice or our remarkable practice clients, but also that they add value to their community. I remember you talking about like you guys even go above and beyond to make sure they get a birthday cake or something for their birthday, and that helps improve
Company policy. Yeah.
employee retention is what we want, right? If we get an A player, we want to hold on to that A player. Sounds like you guys are nailing it.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that after our little conversation, a lot of people listening are like, you know what? This is the solution that I need to help scale my practice further. What's the best way for a listener to learn more or take the next step to get in touch with you?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So firstly, I'd say there might be some listening who say, wow, this is definitely something I need. And there might be another demographic who are just saying, there might be something there. And even if it's not now, I'd kind of like to figure out a little bit how it might work, even if it's in 6 to 12 months that this might come into focus more meaningfully. So more than happy to, I just want to make that clear, I'd be more than happy to speak to absolutely anyone, wherever you're at on that stage, even if it's a 10, 15 minute little fact finding mission, and we can throw some pricing around, answer a couple of questions and check in 6, 12 months. So completely fine with that. So basically, my name's Dan Anticich. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you go onto the Twoconnect.com.au website, you can submit via a form there, and I'll get in touch with you from there. Or, well, yeah, that's pretty much it. The Twoconnect website, go there, get in touch, and I'd love to chat, and we can arrange a time to go through things.
And I'm sure if anyone listening just went, oh, okay, I don't know which one I'm going to do, fail safe is just send a message to somebody at the Remarkable Practice, and we'll put you in touch with Dan.
Absolutely right. Appreciate that.
Thanks for your time today, Dan. And as always, it's a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, direct message us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic, and what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors.